Daquan stood in the massive council chamber, looking up at the 17 alien species that controlled this part of the galaxy. The room was built to make visitors feel small. It worked. The ceiling stretched high above him, and the alien delegates sat on platforms that towered over the human section. Everything about this place was designed to remind humans of their place. For 3 years, Day had been coming to this station. For 3 years, he had been asking for fair treatment. For 3 years, the Galactic Council had been saying no. Today felt different. Today felt like an ending. Beside him sat Hannah Park, the military advisor. She was young for such an important job, only 32, but she had a sharp mind. On his other side was Yuna Choi, the scientist who studied alien life. The rest of the human team sat behind them, 12 people representing all of humanity. The Valorian Chancellor spoke first. His voice came out as a series of clicks and whistles, but the translator made it sound smooth and cold. Ambassador Day, we have reviewed your latest proposal. The Council finds it unacceptable. Day felt his jaw tighten. The proposal had been simple. Humans wanted the right to travel freely through space. They wanted to trade without paying 70% taxes. They wanted to settle on the planets they had already found and claimed. Basic rights that every other species enjoyed. May I ask why? Day kept his voice calm. The Traxian High Magistrate answered. His species looked like giant insects, with 4 arms and compound eyes. Young species must learn patience. You have been in space for less than 200 years. We have been here for thousands. You must earn your place. Hannah leaned close to Day and whispered. Tay just sent a message. Another mining team was attacked. Day felt ice in his stomach. Where? New Busan Colony. Council enforcers. They're calling it illegal mining. We've had claim to those asteroids for 2 years. Day said quietly. I know, Hannah said. Tay says there are casualties. A lot of them. Day looked down at his tablet. The message from Tay Sung, their intelligence officer, was short and terrible. 342 miners were dead. The council ships had fired without warning. The miners had been unarmed civilians. He stood up. The sudden movement made the alien delegates stop talking. Ambassador Day, you have not been given permission to speak, the Chancellor said. I don't need permission, Day said. His voice carried through the huge chamber. Not anymore. Yuna stood up next to him. Then Hannah. Then the rest of the human delegation. What is the meaning of this? The magistrate demanded. Day pulled up a file on his tablet and sent it to the main display. Images filled the massive screens around the chamber. For 6 months, we have been tracking your ships in our space. You have been mining our claimed asteroids. You have been watching our colonies. You have been breaking every agreement we made. The aliens didn't seem concerned. The Chancellor waved one of his tentacle-like arms. Minor misunderstandings. Such things happen between species. This isn't a misunderstanding, Day said. He pulled up another file. Dr. Yuna discovered something interesting 3 weeks ago. There's a disease spreading through our colony on New Sol. It only affects humans. It only appeared after a council medical ship visited. Yuna stepped forward. I ran the genetic analysis myself. This disease was created in a laboratory. Someone made it to specifically harm humans. The council chamber erupted in noise. Some aliens protested. Others stayed silent. The Chancellor raised his voice. This is a serious accusation. Do you have proof? I have samples, Yuna said. I have genetic markers. I have the ship logs showing when the disease appeared. Yes, I have proof. Even if this were true. The magistrate said. These matters should be discussed calmly. Through proper channels. Through negotiation. We tried negotiation, Hannah said. Her voice was hard. For 3 years, we tried. You treated us like children. You made us beg for basic rights. And now, our people are dying. Day held up his tablet one more time. A new message from Tay had just arrived. It had a video attached. He played it for the entire council to see. The video showed New Busan Colony. It showed human miners working on asteroids, that were clearly marked with human claim beacons. It showed Council enforcer ships arriving. It showed those ships opening fire. No warnings, no communications, just death. The screams of the dying miners filled the chamber. When the video ended, the room was silent. 342 people, Day said quietly. 342 humans who were doing legal work in human space. You killed them. They were in disputed territory, the Chancellor said. It wasn't disputed until your ships showed up, Day said. We filed our claim 2 years ago. You approved it yourselves. Young species often make mistakes about territorial law, the magistrate said. He didn't sound sorry. He sounded bored. That was when Day knew. They would never treat humans as equals. It didn't matter how many times humanity asked nicely. It didn't matter how many laws they followed. To the Council, humans were insects to be stepped on. Day gathered his papers. The other humans did the same. What are you doing? The Chancellor asked. We came here to negotiate peace, Day said. We came here hoping for fairness. We came here believing that civilized species could talk and find common ground. He looked around at the 17 species of the Galactic Council. Some looked angry. Some looked amused. None looked concerned. We were wrong, Day said. You don't want peace. You want submission. You want us to bow down and accept whatever scraps you throw our way. Ambassador Day, you are being emotional, the magistrate said. Sit down. We can discuss. No, Day said. 5 words came out of his mouth. Words that no species had ever said in this chamber. Words that would change everything. Humanity withdraws from these talks. The shock was immediate. Aliens leaned forward on their platforms. Some stood up. The Chancellor's translator made a sound like choking. You cannot simply leave, the Chancellor said. There are procedures. There are protocols. Follow them yourself, Hannah said. She was already walking toward the exit. Yuna followed. Then the rest of the human team. Day was the last to leave. He turned at the door and looked back at the Council one final time. You had a choice, he said. You could have treated us with respect. You could have been fair. Instead, you chose to see us as lesser beings. You chose to harm us. You chose to kill our people. You are making a terrible mistake, the magistrate said. Without the Council's protection, humanity will not survive in this galaxy. Day smiled. It wasn't a happy smile. It was the smile of someone who had made a decision and would not look back. Maybe you're right, he said. Or maybe you just made the worst mistake in Council history. I guess we'll find out. He walked out. The door sealed behind him with a heavy sound. In the Council chamber, the aliens sat in stunned silence. In 10,000 years, no species had ever walked away from the Galactic Council. The humans had just changed the rules of the game, and they had no idea what was coming next. The Council expected humans to come back within a week. They waited. A week passed. Then 2. Then a month. No human ships arrived at the Council station. No messages came from Earth. The few human traders who had been selling goods in Council space disappeared overnight. Their shops closed. Their warehouses emptied. They were just gone. Magistrate Vex stood in his private chamber, looking at reports that made no sense. Humans had settlements on 23 worlds. Every single one had gone dark. Not destroyed, not abandoned, just silent. They're ignoring us, said his assistant, a young Traxian named Kel. No, Vex said slowly. They're not ignoring us. They're shutting us out. There's a difference. He pulled up a star map. Human space glowed in blue on the display. 2 months ago, Council ships could travel freely through that space. Now, any Council vessel that got close to the border was met by human warships. No fighting, no threats. The human ships would just appear and wait. The message was clear. Turn around. 3 Council spy drones had tried to slip past the human borders. All 3 had been destroyed before they could send back any data. We need to know what they're doing in there, Vex said. Kel nodded. I may have a solution. There's a human who works for us. A woman named Rena Bay. She defected to our side 5 years ago. Why would a human betray their own people? She said humanity was too aggressive, too warlike. She wanted to help the council maintain peace. Kel pulled up a file. She's been very useful. Her information helped us identify several human military installations. Vex studied the file. Rena Bay had given the council a lot of valuable intelligence over the years. But could she be trusted now? Now that humanity had walked away from the peace talks? Send her in, Vex said. But be careful. If humanity is as angry as I think they are, she might not be safe. 2 days later, Rena Bay entered human space in a small, unmarked ship. She knew the security codes. She knew the patrol routes. Getting past the border defenses was easy. What she found on the other side made her forget how to breathe. The colony of New Sol had been a small settlement when she had last seen it. Maybe 50,000 people. A few factories, some farms. Now, it looked like a military fortress. Orbital defense platforms surrounded the planet. The factories had tripled in size. And the shipyards, Rena counted 30 new warships under construction. At one colony, just one, she made her ship invisible to most sensors and moved deeper into human space. Every colony she passed was the same. Massive construction, new weapons, new ships. Everywhere she looked, humans were building for war, but it was the industrial output that scared her most. The numbers didn't make sense. Humanity's production had been stable for years. Now it had increased by 600% in just 2 months. That should be impossible. You couldn't just make factories work 6 times faster. Unless you stopped making everything else and focused only on weapons. Rena made it all the way to Earth before she was caught. She had been careful, but not careful enough. A man named Hyun Lee found her. He was the commander of Earth Intelligence, and he had been waiting for her. "Hello, Rena," he said when his agents brought her to his office. "We've been expecting you." "How did you know?" she asked. "Because we know the council. We knew they would send a spy. We knew they would send you." Hyun sat down across from her. He looked tired. "You're going to tell them everything you saw, aren't you?" "That's my job," Rena said. "Then I'll make it easy for you." Hyun pushed a data pad across the table. "This is a summary of everything we're doing. Ship counts, weapons development, industrial capacity, everything." Rena picked up the pad and read. Her hands started shaking. You can't be serious. These numbers are all correct," Hyun said. "We're not hiding anything. We want the council to know exactly what they're facing." "You're preparing for total war," Rena whispered. "No," Hyun said. "We're preparing to survive. There's a difference." He stood up and walked to the window. Outside, Rena could see Earth. Her home planet. Except it didn't look like home anymore. Giant construction projects covered the surface. Shipyards floated in orbit. Everything had changed. "We asked for peace," Hyun said quietly. "We begged for it. We tried everything the right way. And they killed our people. They poisoned our colonies. They treated us like animals." "The council isn't evil," Rena said. "They're just old. They're set in their ways. They'll change. Give them time," Hyun laughed. It was a bitter sound. "Time? They've had 10,000 years. They're not going to change because we ask nicely. They're going to change because we make them." He turned back to face her. "You want to know what we're really doing? We're showing the council that humanity isn't going to roll over and die. We're showing them that peaceful people can become warriors when you give them no choice. And we're going to be very, very good at it." Rena looked at the data pad again. The numbers were terrifying. In 3 months, humanity had built more warships than they had in the previous 50 years. They had developed new weapons, new tactics, new technologies that shouldn't exist. "How?" she asked. "How are you doing this so fast?" "Because every human is working toward the same goal," Hyun said. "We're not divided. We're not arguing. When you threaten all of humanity, we stop being different countries and different groups. We become one people." That's something the council never understood. He gestured to the window again. Every factory on Earth is making weapons or ships. Every scientist is working on military projects. Every person with skills is contributing. We've stopped making cars and toys and all the things we used to make. Everything is focused on one thing: being ready for what comes next. You're going to lose, Rena said. The Council has millions of ships, thousands of years of experience. You can't win. Maybe not. Hyun agreed. But we'll make them pay for every inch of space they take. We'll make them regret they ever threatened us. And maybe, just maybe, we'll survive long enough to find allies. Other species who are tired of the Council's rule. He walked to the door. You can send one message to the Council. Make it count. Rena thought about everything she had seen. The weapons, the ships, the unity, the determination in every human face. She sent a short message to Magistrate Vex. They're not preparing to negotiate. They're preparing to survive. And they're angry. Then Hyun's people took her to a holding cell. It was comfortable, but it was still a prison. 3 months after humanity had walked away from the peace talks, Magistrate Vex read Rena's message. He didn't believe it. Humans were weak. They were young. They had only been in space for 200 years. He called an emergency council meeting. The humans are posturing, he told the assembled aliens. They're trying to scare us. But we have nothing to fear. We have millions of ships. We have controlled this galaxy for thousands of years. What can one angry species do? Chancellor Valorian agreed. We should send a peacekeeping force. 5,000 ships should be more than enough. We'll remind the humans of their place. We'll show them what happens when you disrespect the Council. A few voices argued against it. A council economist named Nari Song presented data showing human industrial output. This doesn't make sense, she said. They shouldn't be able to build this fast. Something has changed. Humans are desperate, Vex said. Desperate people do desperate things. But desperation doesn't win wars. The Council voted. 5,000 ships would go to human space. They would show humanity the price of walking away from the Council. Admiral Jin Ro received the news 3 hours before the Council fleet departed. He was on the flagship of the Human Defense Force, a massive ship called the Indomitable. Around him, 3,000 human warships waited at the border of human space. They're coming, his second-in-command said. 5,000 Council ships. Jin smiled. He had been preparing for this moment for 3 months. Good. Let them come. It's time to show the galaxy what happens when you back humans into a corner. He opened a channel to all human ships. This is Admiral Jin. The Council thinks we're weak. They think we'll surrender when we see their numbers. They're wrong. Today, we show them what humanity is really made of. Today, we fight not for conquest, but for our right to exist. Make them regret they ever threatened us. 3,000 voices answered as one. Yes, sir. The waiting was over. The war was about to begin. The Council fleet arrived at Terra's gate like a storm. 5,000 ships, all different shapes and sizes, representing the combined might of 17 alien species. The fleet commander was a Valorian named Krath. He had fought in dozens of battles over his long life. He had never lost. When his sensors showed 3,000 human ships waiting for them, Krath laughed. They actually came to fight, he said to his crew. I expected them to run. His second officer studied the sensor data. Sir, these readings are strange. The human ships, they're different from our intelligence reports. New designs. It doesn't matter, Krath said. We have 5,000 ships. They have 3,000. The math is simple. He opened a channel to the human fleet. This is Commander Krath of the Galactic Council Peacekeeping Force. You are in violation of Council space regulations. Power down your weapons and prepare to be boarded. The response came from Admiral Jin Ro. His voice was calm. This is Admiral Jin of the Human Defense Fleet. You are at the border of human space. Turn around. This is your only warning. Krath couldn't believe what he was hearing. You're giving me a warning? You're outnumbered. You're outgunned. Surrender now and we'll be merciful. No, Jin said simply. Last chance. Turn around. Krath cut the channel. All ships. Prepare for battle. We'll destroy half their fleet, and the rest will surrender. Try to minimize casualties. We're here to teach a lesson, not commit genocide. The Council fleet moved forward in formation. It was a beautiful sight, Krath thought. Thousands of ships moving as one, like a school of fish. Then, the human fleet opened fire. The first weapons the humans used were called kinetic harpoons. J. Kim had designed them in the desperate months after humanity left the Council. They were simple in theory. Take pieces of metal and accelerate them to nearly the speed of light. In practice, they were devastating. The harpoons punched through Council shields like they weren't there. Ships that had survived hundreds of battles exploded into fragments. In the first 30 seconds, Krath lost 200 ships. What was that? He shouted. What kind of weapon? The second wave of attacks hit. These were quantum jammers, created by a scientist named Sora Min. They didn't destroy ships. They made them blind and deaf. Council targeting systems went crazy. Communications broke down. Ships started firing at each other by mistake. Krath tried to restore order, but his own ship was hit by a jammer. His screens went dark, his weapons offline. He was floating in space, helpless. The third wave was the worst. Thousands of small fighters poured out of the human ships. They were tiny, barely big enough for one person, but there were so many of them, and they moved in patterns that made no sense. They swarmed around the Council ships like angry insects. Captain Wu Han led one squadron of these fighters. He was young, only 24. But he had trained for this moment his entire life. His fighter was fast and agile. He flew between the giant Council ships, targeting their engines and weapons. Delta Squadron, hit the command ship, he ordered. Gamma Squadron, take out their carriers. The human fighters moved like they were dancing. They dodged the Council's defensive fire easily. When Council ships tried to shoot them down, they scattered and regrouped somewhere else. Wu saw a disabled Council ship drifting nearby. It was huge. Probably a supply vessel. He had an idea. Beta Squadron, follow me, he said. He flew close to the disabled ship and attached a small device to its hull. Then he flew away fast. The device was a gravity hook. When he activated it, the entire disabled ship started moving, slowly at first, then faster and faster. Wu aimed the drifting ship at a cluster of Council vessels and let go. The massive ship crashed into the cluster like a wrecking ball. 5 Council ships were destroyed in the collision. Use their own ships as weapons, Wu shouted to the other squadrons. Anything that's disabled becomes ammunition. All across the battlefield, human fighters started doing the same thing. The space between the two fleets became filled with debris and drifting wrecks. The humans turned all of it into weapons. On the human flagship, Admiral Jin watched the battle unfold. It was going better than he had hoped. The Council fleet was in chaos. Their formations had broken apart. They were fighting blind and confused. Admiral, the enemy is trying to retreat, his tactical officer reported. Let them go, Jin said. We're not here to destroy them. We're here to send a message. But not all the Council ships were retreating. Some were still fighting. And they were getting desperate. One Council battleship fired everything it had at the human flagship. The shields held, but barely. Warning lights flashed all over the bridge. We've got damage to sections 7 through 12, someone shouted. That's when engineer Eun Hyo proved her worth. She was in charge of repair teams across the entire fleet. She had spent months training for exactly this situation. Reroute power from the port shields to starboard, she ordered her teams. Seal the damaged sections. Use the backup generators. Her people moved fast. Damage that should have taken hours to fix was repaired in minutes. Ships that should have been dead in space kept fighting. The battle lasted 14 hours. It felt like 14 years. When it was finally over, Krath sat in his damaged command chair and looked at the casualty reports. 4,200 council ships destroyed or disabled. Only 800 had escaped. The humans had lost 800 ships. They had been outnumbered, and they had won. Krath opened a channel to the human flagship. His voice was quiet. How? We had superior numbers. Superior technology. How did you defeat us? Admiral Jin's face appeared on the screen. He looked tired but satisfied. You had better ships. You had more ships. But we had something you didn't have. What? A reason to fight, Jin said. You came here to punish us. To teach us a lesson. We fought to protect our homes, our families, everything we love. That makes all the difference. The council won't stop, Krath warned. This was just one fleet. They'll send more. They'll send everything they have. Then we'll defeat them too, Jin said. Every single time, until they learn to leave us alone. He gestured to the debris field around them. Take this message back to your council. Tell them what happened here. Tell them we didn't want this war. But if they insist on fighting, we'll fight back. And we're very good at it. Krath looked at the wreckage of his fleet. They'll call you monsters. They'll say you're too dangerous to exist. Maybe we are, Jin agreed. But we're only dangerous to people who threaten us. We never wanted to hurt anyone. We just wanted to be left in peace. He cut the channel. The surviving council ships limped away from Terra's gate. They left behind the wreckage of 4,000 vessels. They left behind their pride. They left behind the certainty that the council was invincible. On the human ships, people celebrated. They had won. Against impossible odds, they had won. But Admiral Jin didn't celebrate. He knew this was just the beginning. The council would be angry now. They would be scared. And scared, angry people did dangerous things. He opened a channel to all human forces. Well done, everyone. You fought bravely today. But don't think this is over. This was one battle. The real war is just starting. He looked at the stars beyond the battlefield. Somewhere out there, the council was receiving news of their defeat. They would be making plans, gathering forces, preparing for revenge. Get ready, Jin said softly. They're coming back. And next time, they'll bring everything they have. But he wasn't afraid. Humanity had proven something important today. They had proven they could fight. They had proven they could win. And most importantly, they had proven they wouldn't back down. The council had made a mistake when they pushed humanity into a corner. They had turned peaceful explorers into warriors. They had united a divided species into a single, focused force. Now they were going to learn what happens when you make humans angry. The Battle of Terra's Gate was over. But the message it sent echoed across the galaxy. Humanity was no longer asking for respect. They were demanding it. And they had the strength to back up their demands. In the weeks that followed, every species in the galaxy heard the story. How 5,000 council ships had attacked 3,000 human vessels. How the humans had won. How they had sent the mighty council fleet running with their shields between their legs. Some species were impressed. Others were terrified. All of them realized that everything had changed. The humans had arrived. And they weren't going away. The news of the defeat at Terra's Gate hit the council chambers like a bomb. For 3 days, the alien delegates did nothing but argue. Some wanted immediate revenge. Others wanted to negotiate. A few even suggested leaving the humans alone. Magistrate Vex stood at the center of the chaos, trying to maintain order. It wasn't working. We must strike back immediately, shouted the Valorian Chancellor. We cannot let this insult stand. Strike back with what? Asked a Colossian delegate named Gina. Oh. She was old and wise. One of the few voices of reason left. We sent 5,000 ships. We lost 4,000 of them. How many more are you willing to sacrifice? As many as it takes, the Chancellor screamed. We are the Galactic Council. We have ruled this sector for 10,000 years. We cannot let a young species defeat us. They already did defeat us, Gina said quietly. The question now is, what do we do about it? The council voted, barely. The decision was to mobilize everything they had. Every species would contribute ships. They would gather the largest fleet in council history and crush humanity once and for all. But it would take time, months, maybe years, to gather so many ships from across the galaxy. The humans didn't give them that time. Captain Quan Dal commanded a small group of human ships, only 12 vessels, but they were fast and deadly. His orders from Admiral Jin were simple. Make the council hurt. Quan was good at his job. His first target was a council supply convoy carrying food to a military base. He didn't destroy the convoy. Instead, he disabled the engines of every ship, left them with enough supplies to survive, and broadcast a message. Courtesy of humanity. Next time, stay out of our space. His second target was a fuel depot. Again, no killing. He took the fuel and left a note. Thanks for the donation. Humanity appreciates your support. The council tried to protect their supply lines. They sent escorts. Quan avoided them. He struck where they weren't looking. Fast raids, surgical strikes. No casualties unless absolutely necessary. Why aren't you killing them? His second officer asked one day. Because we're not monsters, Quan said. We're making a point. We're showing them we could kill them if we wanted to. But we choose not to. It makes them more afraid. He was right. Across council space, fear spread. If humans could strike anywhere, anytime, and no one could stop them, what else could they do? While Quan harassed the supply lines, Mina Pak was doing something even more dangerous. She was talking to the species the council had conquered. The council controlled 17 species, but they ruled over dozens more. Smaller groups who had been absorbed into the council centuries ago. Groups who had no voice, no vote, no rights. Mina found them in the dark corners of council space. She offered them something simple: technology, weapons, and training. In exchange, they just had to start asking questions, demanding rights, making noise. A species called the Ythrians were the first to listen. They had been under council rule for 300 years. They had been promised independence eventually. It never came. Mina met with their leader in secret. His name was difficult for humans to pronounce, so she called him Elder Koth. Why should we trust you? He asked. Because we're fighting the same enemy, Mina said. The council treats us like children. They treat you like slaves. Together, we can change that. You're one species. The council is 17. 16, actually. Mina corrected. One species withdrew last week. They didn't like how the war against humanity was going. That got his attention. One of the council species left? The Dalarians. They're a peaceful species. They didn't want any part of this war. Mina pulled out a data pad. And they're not the only ones having doubts. The council is cracking. We just need to push a little harder. Elder Koth thought about it. Then he nodded. What do you need from us? Just speak up, Mina said. Demand your rights. Protest. Make the council deal with internal problems while they're fighting us. We'll provide everything you need to defend yourselves if they try to silence you. Within weeks, protests started across council space. Small at first, then growing. Species that had been silent for centuries were suddenly making demands. The council couldn't ignore it, but the council's problems were just beginning. Sang Yu was Earth's economic minister, and he was about to crash the council's entire economy. For years, the council had made huge profits, selling rare minerals and exotic materials. They controlled the sources. They controlled the prices. Sang changed that. He released the formulas for synthetic versions of the council's most valuable exports. For free. Anyone could make them now. The prices collapsed overnight. Council economies started failing. Species that depended on trade revenue were suddenly broke. And they blamed the council leadership for getting into a war with humanity in the first place. While economic chaos spread, Ari Chung was winning the information war. She led Earth's cyber warfare division, and she had spent months preparing for this moment. She hacked into the Council's communication networks and broadcast the truth. Videos of the Council poisoning human colonies. Records of the massacre at New Busan. Evidence of centuries of corruption, lies, and abuse of power. Every screen in Council space showed the same message. The Council has been lying to you. Here's the proof. People across the galaxy were horrified. The Council tried to deny it, but the evidence was too strong. Public opinion turned against them fast. Then Magistrate Vex made one last desperate attempt to turn the war around. He sent a fleet to attack New Busan, the colony where human miners had been killed. He wanted revenge. He wanted a victory to show the Council was still strong. General Junho Park was ready for him. Junho had been preparing the defense of New Busan for months. He knew it was a target. He knew the Council would come back. He had turned the entire colony into a trap. The Council fleet arrived expecting light resistance. They found a fortress. Orbital defense platforms surrounded the planet. Mines filled the space around it, and every human ship in the system was waiting in perfect position. The fleet commander, eager to prove himself, ordered an attack. It was the last order he ever gave. The mines activated first. They weren't normal explosives. They were null field generators. Designed by a scientist named Hai Lim, they created pockets of space where energy couldn't exist. Ships caught in the fields lost all power. Engines died. Shields failed. They were sitting ducks. Then the orbital platforms opened fire, not with energy weapons, but with old-fashioned railguns. Chunks of metal accelerated to incredible speeds. They punched through the powerless Council ships like paper. The human ships moved in to finish the job. It wasn't a battle. It was a slaughter. Not a single human ship was lost. The entire Council fleet was destroyed. When Magistrate Vex heard the news, he knew it was over. The Council couldn't win this war. Humanity was too smart, too fast, too determined. But the final blow came from an unexpected source. Rina Bay appeared on every screen in Council space. The woman who had defected to help the Council. The woman everyone thought was a traitor to humanity. "My name is Rina Bay," she said. "5 years ago, I pretended to defect from humanity. I gave the Council information. I helped them. But it was all a lie." She smiled. "I was a spy. Everything I told the Council was either useless or deliberately misleading. And now I'm going to tell you the truth." For the next hour, Rina revealed everything. Secret Council operations, hidden crimes, massacres of innocent species that had been covered up for centuries. Genetic experiments on unwilling subjects. Planets stripped of resources and left to die. The Council had committed atrocities for thousands of years, and Rina had the proof. By the time she finished, the Council was finished too. Protests turned into riots. Riots turned into revolutions. 12 of the 17 Council species overthrew their old leaders. 5 more withdrew from the Council entirely. The Galactic Council, which had ruled for 10,000 years, collapsed in less than a month. Gina, the wise Colossian delegate, watched it all happen. She had tried to warn them. She had tried to tell them that fighting humanity was a mistake. No one had listened. Now she stood in the empty Council chambers, alone. The other delegates were gone. Some were in prison. Some were in hiding. Some were dead. She received a message from Earth. It was from Ambassador Daquan, the man who had walked out of these chambers 6 months ago. "Ambassador Gina," the message said, "we are forming a new alliance, a real one, based on equality and respect. We would be honored if the Colossian people would join us. We need wise voices like yours to help build something better." Gina looked around the empty chamber one last time. The Council had been powerful and proud. But power and pride weren't enough. You needed wisdom too. You needed to treat others with respect. The Council had forgotten that, and it had cost them everything. She sent a reply today. "I accept your invitation. When should I come to Earth?" The answer came quickly. "As soon as possible. We have a lot of work to do. We're building a new future. A better one. And we want everyone to be part of it. Gina smiled. Maybe something good could come from the ashes of the old council after all. Maybe humanity's anger had actually saved the galaxy from tyranny. She packed her belongings and booked passage to Earth. The council was dead. Long live whatever came next. 1 year after walking out of the council chambers, Ambassador Daquan stood in a different room. This one was in Seoul, on Earth. It was smaller than the council chambers, more humble, but it was filled with representatives from 30 different species, all sitting at the same level. No raised platforms. No hierarchy. Everyone was equal here. Day looked out at the assembled delegates and felt something he hadn't felt in years. Hope, thank you all for coming, he said. His voice was calm but strong. A year ago, the Galactic Council fell apart. Some say humanity destroyed it. I say the Council destroyed itself. We just refused to be another victim. Admiral Jin Ro stood beside him, the warrior who had won the impossible battle at Terra's gate. Next to Jin was Minho Jiang, the scientist who had created weapons that should have been impossible, and Yuna Choi, who had discovered the Council's biological attacks, the architects of humanity's resistance. The people who had saved their species. We didn't come here to gloat, Day continued. We didn't come here to demand tribute or submission. We came here to build something better than what existed before. He gestured to a display behind him. It showed a simple document. The charter for a new interstellar assembly. The former council species had arrived expecting harsh terms. They had lost the war. They expected to be punished. Instead, they got something they didn't expect. Forgiveness. This charter is simple, Day explained. Every species gets one vote, regardless of size or age. No species pays special taxes. No species gets special privileges. We share technology freely, but everyone keeps their innovations. We defend each other, but no one is forced to fight. A Valorian delegate stood up. Her name was Sela. She had been part of the government that ordered the attack on human miners. Why? She asked. After everything we did to you, why treat us as equals? Day looked at her for a long moment. Because we're better than you were. We could have conquered the council species while you were weak. We could have made you pay for every crime. We could have become the new tyrants. He smiled sadly. But that would make us exactly like you. And we didn't fight a war just to become the thing we hated. Hannah Park stepped forward. She had been humanity's military advisor. Now she was their peace architect. The old council failed because it was based on fear and power. This assembly will work because it's based on respect and cooperation. A Traxian delegate, one of Magistrate Vex's former assistants, raised his claw. What about weapons? What's to stop one species from building a fleet and conquering the others? Admiral Jin answered that. We're creating a joint defense force. Ships from every species. Working together. If anyone attacks the assembly, they attack all of us. And we've proven we're very good at defending ourselves. Yuna Choi stood up next. She was carrying a small case. I have something to share. She opened the case and pulled out vials filled with blue liquid. This is the cure for the genetic disease the Council introduced to human colonies. It works. We tested it. She set the vials on the table. We're giving it away for free, to everyone who needs it, because healing is more important than revenge. The room was silent. Former enemies stared at the cure that humanity could have kept for themselves, that they could have sold for billions, that they were just giving away. We're also sharing defensive technology, Hannah added. She pulled up schematics on the display. Shield generators, early warning systems, and jamming technology. Everything you need to protect yourselves from outside threats. Outside threats? Asked Gina. Oh, the Colossian elder. What outside threats? The Council controlled this sector of the galaxy, Jin said. But there are other sectors. Other powers. Some of them might see our chaos as an opportunity. We need to be ready. Together. Mina Pak, the woman who had organized rebellions across council space, spoke up. We've also been in contact with the species the council conquered. The ones who had no voice, they're invited to join the assembly too. Equal members, equal votes. Elder Koth of the Yithrians stood up. We accept. After 300 years of being treated as subjects, it will be good to be partners instead. One by one, the species declared their intention to join. Not because they were forced, not because they were afraid, because it was a good idea, because it was fair. But not everyone was convinced. The former Valorian chancellor, stripped of power but still alive, was allowed to speak. He stood with difficulty. The past year had aged him. This is a nice dream, he said bitterly. But it won't last. Someone will want power. Someone will break the rules. What will you do then? Day looked at him steadily. We'll deal with it. Together. With debate and voting and, if necessary, with force. But it will be force used to protect the assembly, not to conquer it. And who decides what's protecting versus conquering? The chancellor challenged. Everyone decides, Day said. That's what voting means. No single species controls the assembly. We all control it, together. Sang Yu, the economic minister who had crashed the council's markets, presented the next part of the plan. We're establishing free trade zones, no tariffs between assembly members. We're also creating a shared currency and a development fund to help smaller species grow their economies. You're just going to give money away? A delegate asked, confused. We're investing in the future, Sang said. When everyone prospers, everyone benefits. The old council hoarded wealth. We're sharing it. Ari Chung, the cyber warfare specialist, had one more surprise. We've also created a free information network. Every species can access it. News, entertainment, education, all free. No censorship, except for things that directly cause harm. You're not afraid people will use it against you? Someone asked. Transparency makes us stronger, not weaker, Ari said. The council fell because they lied. We're going to succeed because we tell the truth. The discussions went on for hours. Questions, concerns, ideas, all shared openly. When it was finally time to vote on the charter, every species raised their hand in support, even the former council species, even the Valorians who had started the war, even the Traxians who had called humans primitive. The Interstellar Assembly was born. After the vote, Day found himself standing alone on a balcony, looking out at Seoul. The city lights stretched to the horizon. A year ago, this city had been converting factories to make weapons. Now those factories were being converted back, making cars and computers and all the peaceful things humanity had stopped making during the war. Admiral Jin joined him. Do you think it will work? I don't know, Day admitted. But it's worth trying. And if it fails, at least we can say we tried to build something good. The council thought they were building something good too, Jin pointed out. They thought they were bringing order to chaos. The difference is, we're not claiming to be perfect, Day said. We're not saying we have all the answers. We're just saying everyone deserves a voice. Everyone deserves respect. Tae-sung, the intelligence officer who had sent that first terrible message about the massacre, appeared behind them. Sir, we just got a message from the outer colonies. They're asking when they can start normal trade again. Tell them immediately, Day said. The war is over. It's time to rebuild. Tae hesitated. Some of them want to keep building warships, just in case. That's their choice, Jin said. But make sure they understand. We're not preparing for war anymore. We're preparing for peace. There's a difference. Down in the assembly hall, the celebrations had begun. Species that had fought each other were now drinking together. Former enemies were becoming friends. Yuna Choi found Rina Bay in the crowd. The spy who had pretended to betray humanity. The woman whose final broadcast had destroyed the council. You did well, Yuna said. I lied to people for 5 years, Rina said quietly. You saved thousands of lives, Yuna corrected. Maybe millions, The Council would have kept hurting people if you hadn't exposed them. Does that make it right? I don't know, Yuna admitted. But I know it was necessary. Sometimes we have to do hard things to protect what matters. Across the room, Captain Quandal was talking to a young Valorian officer. The officer had been part of the fleet Quan had harassed during the war. You raided my supply convoy, the officer said. I did, Quan agreed. Sorry about that. How's your ship? Fixed, now. No thanks to you. But the officer was smiling. I have to admit, leaving us alive when you could have killed us. That was clever. It made us more afraid than any attack would have. That was the point, Quan said. We wanted you to know we could be merciful. Or we could be ruthless. Your choice, which one you got. You chose mercy, the officer said, even when we didn't deserve it. Why? Because killing is easy, Quan said. Any fool can destroy. It takes wisdom to build. We wanted to prove we had both the strength to fight and the wisdom to know when to stop. General Junho Park, the defender of New Busan, was surrounded by military officers from a dozen species. They all wanted to know how he had defeated an entire fleet without losing a ship. It wasn't complicated, he said. We knew they were coming. We prepared. We used the terrain to our advantage. And we didn't panic when things got tough. But the tactics, a Traxian officer insisted. The way you coordinated the defense. I've never seen anything like it. We learned from everyone, Junho said. We studied every battle the Council ever fought. We took the best tactics from all of you and combined them with our own ideas. That's the advantage of being new. We don't have traditions holding us back. As the night wore on, Day found himself thinking about the past year. The fear, the anger, the desperate preparations for war, the battle at Terra's gate, the slow crumbling of the Council, and now this. A room full of former enemies, working together to build something new. It had been a long journey. From the moment he walked out of the Council chambers to this moment, creating a new assembly. So much had changed, but some things hadn't changed. Humanity still wanted the same thing they had always wanted. To be treated with respect. To have a voice. To be part of the galaxy's future. They had just fought a war to prove they deserved it. Gina O approached him as the celebrations wound down. You know this won't be easy, she said. Building something new never is. There will be arguments, conflicts, maybe even fights. I know, they said, but at least we'll face them together. As partners, not as masters and servants. The Council lasted 10,000 years, Gina said. How long do you think the assembly will last? Day smiled. Longer. Because it's built on something stronger than fear. It's built on the hope that we can all do better. He looked around the room one last time. At the species who had learned to respect each other. At the future they were building together. We didn't conquer the galaxy, he said quietly. We just refused to be conquered. And in doing that, we showed everyone that there was a better way. The Galactic Council had made a mistake. They had pushed humanity into a corner. They had forced peaceful explorers to become warriors, but humanity had made a choice too. They chose to be better than their enemies. They chose to build instead of destroy. They chose hope over hate, and that choice changed everything. The war was over. The real work was just beginning. But for the first time in a long time, Day believed they could actually succeed. The galaxy had a second chance. Humanity had given it to them. Now it was up to everyone to make it work.